Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you very much, Moffie, for both being our guinea pig as our first candidate that we're interviewing tonight, and for joining us generally. For those who don't know me, I'm Quinlan O'Connor. I'm the chair of the Lewis and Clark County Democratic Central Committee. I'd encourage everybody to join us at upcoming meetings of the Central Committee. We meet the second Tuesday of every month. It's a great get-together of Democrats, and we talk about plans for the upcoming election and what we can do to help great candidates like Moffie win in November. So we wanted to set up these as an opportunity for folks to get to know the candidates. This isn't the only opportunity, so we're going to this meeting. We are recording this meeting, and we're going to post it online so that folks who couldn't join us tonight, I know it's a busy time, we'll be able to hear from Moffie moving forward as well. And of course, if you're in touch with her, I'm sure she's willing to talk that way as well. And we are working on scheduling more of these in the upcoming weeks with the other legislative candidates here in Lewis and Clark County. And so stay tuned for more information. Get on our and let us know, and follow our Facebook page, all of those fun things. If folks who are here in attendance do have questions, feel free to raise your hand or type into the chat box, and we will get those as quickly as we can. And before we really begin, Moffie, can you tell us where House District 82 is so that people can kind of orient themselves?
Absolutely. It's 6th Avenue North, Montana Avenue West, to kind of about along Central School. Central is sort of a cutoff. And then I go out into the valley until Sierra Road. I do jump over and McHugh Drive is the other one. I do jump over the interstate, and I call them the K streets, Kiki and all those ones, which is a pretty large area, but it's amazing the places that have been built up. But yeah, so it just goes out to Sierra Road. So kind of 6th Avenue to Sierra Road.
Awesome. All right. Well, so tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for re-election.
About myself, I'm a retired middle school teacher, which was social studies middle school teacher. So you can imagine that was absolutely the most fun ever. I got to teach Montana history and U.S. history and geography and current affairs. And it was a fabulous experience for me. Middle school is a tough time for parents and the kids, but it's a fabulous time for a teacher because they're just learning that the world is not actually black and white. And so it's planting. Yeah, it was terrific. And the reason I decided to run, I've been involved in politics as somebody who's knocked doors, made phone calls. I love knocking doors. But then with redistricting in 2014, I suddenly had a Republican representing me. And she was a very nice lady. It's just we did not have the same values. So I decided to run, and I went through my district 5 times in 2014 and got to meet a lot of people. I was worried about knocking doors for myself as opposed to others, but it's even more fun and it's fabulous. And since the last 2 elections, I was unopposed, so I just knocked a lot of doors to remind people that I was still their representative, and then asked them to vote for John Tester and all the other candidates or issues that we've had. This time I do have an opponent. A lot of us who have not had opponents do this time. They just kind of want to keep us from being able to start writing bills, I guess. I'm not sure, but yeah. I grew up kind of all over the place, but that's another story. I got to Montana. I am not native born Montana, just full disclosure, but I was smart enough to marry a Montanan. So I think that gives me a leg up.
So you've been in the legislature for 3 terms now, and you're running for your 4th. So what are you most proud of accomplishing?
I think truly it was building bridges. I haven't passed massive numbers of bills, but I have worked really hard to get some bills across the finish line. I think working with people this last interim, we've gotten some really good bills out of our interim committees. And I didn't do it all by myself, but by building relationships, because, oh yeah, we're in the minority. So you really do have to work across the aisle, and figuring out, I don't think compromise is a dirty word. So yeah, I think that's building those relationships. The best part, to be perfectly honest, is when we're not in session, and this has really been true this time, and your constituents reach out to you and you can actually help them. So I think more than any bill, the ability to be somebody that people can contact and I can help them is is incredibly rewarding, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. So what do you hope to get done during the upcoming session, assuming you're reelected?
If I get reelected, as I say, we got some really good bills out of our interim committees. We have finally, well, we got it out of committee before to make, because education is obviously one of my passions, is to have special ed included in the 5 categories that automatically get inflation increases. And each session we bring it forward to include special ed students, and each session it just gets squashed. And this time the legislative finance is going to bring it forward. So that's a huge victory. The legislative finance did a subcommittee for its education, and they let some of us policy people come in. So I'm really excited about that. And I think we can do it. I hope so. I know that everybody says this is going to be a budget session, but it's something we need to do. And the other bills out of the education interim, one is to do away with the reduced payment for school breakfast and lunches. So that means that, first of all, it saves the administration of a school. They don't have to go chasing people to get payment. And it takes away any stigma, just everybody gets a free breakfast or in a free lunch. And we'll get, it really leverages a lot of federal money. So I'm excited about that one, hopefully that one. And there's a couple of other little bills. So I'm hoping to strengthen, I'm hoping that we can do some good things rather than just fight against the bad things. It would be a refreshing change if we could move good ideas forward as opposed to just fighting. I see Dory's on, we've got to protect our pensions, and thank you so much. What you and Shawn do for public employee pensions is phenomenal, and they're coming for them. So that's one we will work hard on to make sure that the benefits that people have earned, they actually get.
Well, as a public employee myself, I very much appreciate that.
Well, absolutely. You don't get paid much, and so these benefits that you work hard for are incredibly important. Yeah.
And so just as a brief break, if folks do have questions that they want to ask, you can raise your hand by clicking the raise your hand button in the participants window, and there is somebody raising their hand. So James, do you have a question?
Yeah, Moffie, you were talking about one of the things that you like to do as a legislator was help citizens, people who call in and asking for help. I was wondering if there was a story you could share with us that moved you and you felt that you made a real difference.
Oh, thank you. It's often the things that I actually can help them with and get right. In the past few months, I've gotten a lot of calls on unemployment. You know, I think our DLI did an amazing job when you think of the flood that happened, but people fell through the cracks. And so being able to talk to people and then get them the help that they needed was very gratifying. I think, and sometimes it's just being somebody to listen to when people are feeling frustrated and that nobody hears. So I may not have actually been able to do anything concrete, But when they shared their stories, it's very humbling, and it's very, and then you can point them, particularly people with mental health issues, when they share something, you can help them find the resources they need, because we do have resources. And I'll just do a little plug for the Awareness Network, because I see its founder is on this, and and that's that helps kids, that young people that, you know, the really rich can afford to get help, and the very poor can often afford. But so you have to awareness of it. And then it's those kids who fall in between and can't afford to get therapy, and the Awareness Network. So I do send people that way too.
Right, thank you.
It's Robert Funk that's the founder of it.
I think that's the second Moffie Funk who joined the meeting, actually. But
I know.
So, as you know, Montanans and their businesses have been hit hard by the need to stay home and slow the spread of COVID. So, what plans do you have, or what plans do does the Democratic caucus have to boost the economy during the upcoming session?
Very good question. Haven't a clue. I mean, it's the things that we as Democrats want to do. Probably we're not going to have a majority. I mean, that's why it's so critically important that we keep the second floor, because we're not, I hope we gain some seats, but we're not going to have a majority in either chambers. So the things that we want to do, which, you know, and Marianne, I know, could speak eloquently on this, but some of the tax things that we tried to do, we need to go back to 2003 when we changed the tax levels and look at that again, because yeah, that's kind of messed up. They are actually, I think the tax, despite Alan Redfield running it, the tax committee this interim has maybe made some progress, and they're actually talking about something to do with capital gains, which would be, you know, a huge help for the vast majority of people. It's only going to touch a teeny little, tiny portion of them. So things like that. As and I keep hearing, and again, I we don't know, but that we are in a strong financial position. Montana has weathered this storm, this tsunami, better than a lot of states. And knock wood and touch iron, our fire fund is really strong. So I think we have some resources. If we can get more federal funds, definitely we need that to help some of the small businesses. But I think we might be in a good position if we can get the funds to the people who need them the most. And that's always the tricky part.
And so, for those who don't know, me included, you said that the tax bracket changed in 2003 problematically. What does that mean? What was changed about them?
Well, they went from, and again, I'm not an expert. We should probably have, if Marianne, if I mess up, I know you'll correct me. I believe we had something like 15 to 17 levels, and that's maybe too many. But they went down to about 5. And I think it's 5 or 7. And so somebody who makes 30,000 is in the same tax bracket as somebody who makes $500,000, the percentage of their income. I may have my numbers a little bit off, but it's about like that. So, you know, 10% of somebody who makes 30,000 is a lot of money. 10% of somebody who makes $500,000 they can afford, in my opinion.
Marianne, by the way, you were exactly correct. So there you go. You got it right. So thank you, Marianne, also.
Thank you.
So what do you think the biggest challenge facing the legislature this upcoming year is going to be, and how do you overcome it, if that's possible even?
I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be the budget, of course. And it will be huge if we don't get Casey and Mike into the governor's office. I was just on the, I think Marianne, some of you may have been on at the Labor Day picnic, And Mike had a great line. He said, for somebody who says that having worked in public service, that Mike had never had a real job, it's funny he's spending $2.5 million to try and get one of those jobs. And I thought that was a great line. But if we don't have budget, is going to be the issue. And I don't know, sometimes people say, oh, it's not going to be so bad. And other times they say it's going to be terrible. I don't know. I hope it doesn't become another budget session, because 2017 was certainly awful. And it's going to depend on whether we meet in person. I dread the idea that all the Republicans will be sitting there in the room and the Democrats will be doing it remotely. And I can see that scenario, which would be terrible, because truly, hey, Quinn, because it's so important to be able to have those sidebar conversations. When I talked earlier about building relationships, you do that by the 10 minutes before we start the floor session. You go over to the other side and sit down and, talk a little bit and have those side conversations that build relationships. And not being able to do that is going to make it very, very challenging. How they can't make a decision, a determination of how it's going to go right now, because we're still too. It's like the same thing. This poor schools are trying to figure out. They have a plan, but it could change any minute. If people had behaved themselves all summer, we would have been in a much better position.
When is that determination going to be made, or do we even know?
They would like it to be made by the end of November. I think that's kind of the drop dead time. You have to figure out how to do it. There's a lot of talk about going back. We'll get sworn in. All that first week, that's just kind of trainings and things like that, which again is a lot of good opportunities to talk to people about bills you want to bring and building support amongst your colleagues, which you won't be able to do, but all that would be done virtually, and then maybe actually meet a bit early. My concern, people who want to just do the budget and then come back later to do policy, my concern is that not having a majority, they'll just sine die on us. Because Forrest Mandeville, who used to be in the minute we passed the budget, he said, okay, we've done our work, sine die. And I know it's sine die, those you lawyers, but nobody.
Well, is that just about paving the way toward annual sessions?
Well, this maybe this is what will happen, because we've been talking about it for years. And I think with term limits that would be an advantage to the annual sessions, is that you don't go 20 months without seeing your colleagues. So it might be interesting if we can cut. We have to make sure, if this happens, if we do the budget and then say we'll come back next year to do policy, we cannot sine die, because then we're done. We have to adjourn, and then the adjournment would last 9 months or something. but that was so it will be tricky.
What do you want folks in Helena and Lewis and Clark County and your district specifically to know about the upcoming election?
Vote for Mike Cooney and Casey Schreiner. I want all of those offices back, and I want to get rid of Danes like crazy. But for us here in Montana, if we lose the governorship, we are so totally. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be so awful. And that's why the Attorney General is so important. All those offices are so important, and we have such awesome people running for them. So terrific. We just and it's so hard, because I know a lot of us got rid of our anxiety this time of year 4 years ago by knocking on doors, and 2 years ago knocking on doors and talking to people, and at least you felt you were doing something. So that's anxiety's a little higher this year, isn't it?
Fair enough. And we have a question from Bob. I'm assuming it is. think you just there.
So I think that very good. I mean, completely on board. We have to elect Mike Cooney and all of these other Democrats up and down the ticket. But something I would encourage people on this call to look at is your opponent and how terrifying your opponent is. And so that they should probably get invested in your race as well, because I'm guessing you don't agree with her position on overthrowing the government, anti-vaccination, anti-masks, and the belief that our public schools are indoctrinating children and in terms of transgender. These are my nieces and nephew, by the way. So, I mean, she's actually incredibly terrifying, and these elections come down to a few hundred votes. So,
yeah, that is true. If backed by, she doesn't have a lot of donors, but Gianforte gave her 180. So that tells you, it would be awful. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. They really have run some just scary people. She was one of that group, do you remember 2 years ago, that would be, or I guess it was less than that, but they would be protesting outside of DPHHS all the time, and they had really ugly signs. I mean, yeah, those are her people.
All right.
So I'm working hard to get reelected, because I don't want her to represent my people.
Well, so if people do want to help with your campaign, what should they do?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sure you're all making calls for these other people. If you know people that live in my district, or even if you don't, if you want a yard sign, if you want to make calls, I'm feeling pretty good about the calls and things like that. So always appreciate a donation, or donate to another thing, to MDLCC, which is the legislative branch of the Democratic Party, because you know, the donation there goes a long way. But I'll tell you, you guys just lift me up. This is really nice for me.
Well, thank you much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Good luck on your campaign. And of course, as the Central Committee and me personally, let me know if there's anything we can do to help your campaign.
Well, thank you. I love that you're sending out stuff and telling people. I mean, I think we're lucky. We're so lucky to live in Helena, but we are also in our little island here, because when I went, okay, that's right. But when I ran the first time, I had to work so hard. I lost 3 of my precincts. They've now started voting for me, but I did lose 3 of them, because you start going north and it gets very, very conservative. And we all have Marianne has very conservative parts. My heavens, Catherine has some conservative parts in her district. We all have, I mean, sometimes it's your neighbor and you think, how can they live in Helena and feel that way? But they do. But yeah, my thanks to all of you. This was so fun. I can't wait to see everybody else get to do it.
And I think Kev might have a question before we
wrap. I don't have a question. I just have a comment. What a lovely flag in your background.
Oh. I have it there so I can grab it whenever I need to.
Delightful.
Oh, thanks, Kev. Thank you for all you do to get all this technical stuff. You've been amazing.
We try.
All right. Thanks very much. And I know you've got another event to get to, so best of luck.
Yeah, I know. We have to go to the birthday party now, right?
Yeah. I think that's the one.
Yeah, it is. Bye, Quinn. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.